Are you struggling with painful penetrative sex? Are you married and struggling to have first time sex with your husband and struggling to consummate your marriage? Do you believe that you're suffering from the condition vaginismus? In this video, I'll be sharing with you my experience of my wedding night and my first time and how I struggled with painful sex and with vaginismus. I'm creating this video to show you that you're not alone, and I want to give you hope that it's possible to overcome this and it's possible to have pain-free, penetrative sex with your husband. I'd love for you to subscribe if you're interested in videos on sex education and body positivity, and also hit the bell icon so you're notified each time I upload a new video. I'm a sex educator and vaginismus coach. I became a vaginismus coach because of my own personal experience of struggling with vaginismus and struggling with painful sex. I struggled with painful sex for quite a long time, and then I was finally able to overcome it, and through that process I learned so much, and now I work as a vaginismus coach helping other women who are experiencing vaginismus and painful sex to overcome it too. I help hundreds of women to overcome it so that they're able to have pain-free penetrative sex with their husbands. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my story, so let's get started. So my journey with vaginismus actually started way back when I was about 13 years old. I was in secondary school, and some of my friends at the time were talking about first time sex for a woman, and I started hearing that first time sex is extremely painful for a woman. That's what I was hearing from my other friends. And they started talking about something called the hymen, and they started saying that when a woman has sex for the first time, the hymen, which is at the entrance of the vagina, which covers the vagina like a kind of barrier, has to get penetrated and broken, and that produces loads of blood, and it's excruciatingly painful, and a woman starts crying and screaming when she has sex for the first time. Those were the stories I heard, as a 13-year-old. I didn't know what was true and what wasn't true, so I took that as the truth, and it produced a lot of feelings of fear within me. I remember feeling terrified at hearing that, thinking about it's so painful for a woman and there's blood involved and that something has to get broken. So I was left with the impression that first time sex for a woman was a very negative experience, a very painful experience, and something that a woman should be dreading. In addition to that, the stories I heard growing up, both culturally and religiously, kind of added to those feelings of fear when it came to sex. So kind of religiously, I'm a Muslim, and I was taught to save yourself for marriage, to not have sex outside of marriage, and I was taught that sex outside of marriage is dirty and sinful and shameful, and that sex is a bad thing. That's kind of the narrative that was portrayed at the time. And in terms of culturally, so my dad is from Egypt, and I remember in Egypt, and I'm sure it's the same in many Arab countries, and probably even many Muslim countries, there's this kind of story or narrative about a woman's honor and a woman's virginity. And so when a woman gets married and has sex for the first time on her wedding night, she needs to prove her virginity and prove her honor. And the way that this is done is by sharing the blood-stained sheets from the wedding night of her having first time sex. And if she's able to reveal blood on the wedding night, then there is like a celebration that, look, my daughter, was a virgin, and she, saved herself, and like she has all this honor, and it's like a celebratory moment for her to prove herself and prove her so-called virginity through that blood. And I remember hearing those stories when I was growing up as a teenager, and just thinking that that is such a strange tradition. Like, that's the way I felt about it. I felt it didn't sit right with me, and it again continued to add to this negative idea about women and about first time sex for women. So after finishing secondary school, I then attended a sixth form between the ages of 16 to 18. And in that sixth form is where I actually met my current husband. So I met him at the age of around 16 or 17. We started to get to know each other for about a year. And during that time, we started, developing feelings for each other. And I knew that I wanted to marry him. He felt the same way. And so we decided that we were going to speak to our parents about it. And yes, we were really young, but at the time, somehow it felt like the right thing to do. We felt mature enough to make this decision. So this was quite a long time ago. So this was between the years of 2006 to 2008. So this was quite a while ago. And so we ended up speaking to our parents, and they were naturally quite hesitant, thinking that we're still young. We haven't even started university yet. And we suggested to them that we would like to get married before university.
So at the age of 18, just before we started university, they were hesitant, but eventually they decided, okay, this is a good thing, that we kind of wanted to do things the right way. We didn't want to kind of continue getting to know each other outside of marriage because it may lead to temptation and us potentially having sex or sexual activity outside of marriage. And we just knew as Muslims that we didn't want to do anything that was outside of our kind of faith and our Islamic beliefs. So we decided that we were going to get married, and so we did. We got married at the age of 18 in the summer, just before we started university. We're both the same age. And so that's how it happened. And because we were so young, we were unable to move out and live with each other straight away. So what we decided to do is that we would get married, but we would continue living with our own parents. So I stayed at my parents and he stayed at his. But because we were married, we were able to see each other freely. And we decided to wait a year and save up during that year so that we could move out a year later. And that's what we did. So at the age of 19, we then moved out into our own place. And we decided that that time that we moved out would be our wedding night. So even though we got married at 18, we didn't actually have sex for the first time at 18 because we didn't have our own place. We just decided to kind of wait and postpone our wedding night. And so at 19, on the night that we moved into our new place, it was meant to be our first time together. We were both virgins, and it was meant to be our wedding night. I remember a few weeks or even a few months before that, before moving in with him, I started feeling those feelings of dread and fear. I was anticipating my wedding night in a negative way, thinking that I'm going to have to go through a lot of pain, there's going to be blood, it's going to be terrible. But I was also thinking that, you know, I was like, I'm sure other women have gone through this, that they just have to put up with the pain and bear with the pain. So I'm going to have to do the same thing. And so, you know, we moved in together and tried to have sex that first time on our wedding night. And it was terrible. It was excruciatingly painful. It was pretty much impossible for my husband to put his penis in my vagina. I remember that my whole body was shaking. My legs were shaking. It was the reaction my body was doing because of that, those feelings of fear and feelings of dread. And it was a fear of pain. That's what it was for me. And so my body was shaking. And as my husband, you know, tried to put his penis into my vagina, it just couldn't go in. It felt like there was this block, like there was this like brick wall preventing his penis from going in. And the more he tried to put it in, the more painful it was. And I think I remember saying, you know, just force it in, just put it in, something like that. And he tried, and it just literally just couldn't go. There was a barrier, there was something blocking it. And you know, I started thinking, is this my hymen? Is it my hymen that's getting in the way? Is my hymen this thick rigid wall that is preventing his penis to go in? I was naive, I was ignorant back then. I was only 19. I didn't know. I didn't even know where my vagina was. That's how bad it was. So I had never looked at myself down there. I had never looked at my vulva. I don't know if I even knew it was called a vulva back then. I just assumed that my private area was called a vagina. I didn't actually know where the entrance of my vagina is at that time. And so, you know, I think I even remember him asking me, where is it? He wasn't sure which hole to put it in. That's how terrible it was, because we lacked sex education so much back then. Obviously things are different now given the work that I do, but I really believe that had we had proper sex education, had we been taught, especially me as a woman, had I been taught how to have sex for the first time in a pain-free way, things could have been different. But I believe everything happens for a reason. I had to go through that experience for a reason. And so my wedding night experience was pretty awful. I think I remember feeling really emotional, but we put it down to like first time nerves, and we said we would try again later. So we did, either a few days later or a couple of weeks later, I can't remember. We tried again to have penetrative sex for the first time again. And the exact same thing happened, where his penis couldn't enter my vagina, and it was really, really painful and really, really difficult. So essentially we were unable to have penetrative sex. We were unable to consummate our marriage. And every single time we tried to have sex, the same thing kept happening. We didn't really know what was going on. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I kind of felt like I was this weak person, where I started thinking, other women can tolerate this pain, why can't I? That's kind of how I felt back then. Now I know that first time sex is not meant to be painful, but as I mentioned back then, I was naive and I was ignorant and I didn't know any better. So after a while, we kind of gave up. We kind of stopped trying to have penetrative sex, and we started relying on other forms of sexual activity to generate sexual pleasure for each other and to bring us to orgasm. And that was fine. That was great. That was enjoyable. And there's nothing wrong with that. But because we were unable to have penetrative sex, it felt like there was something missing from our marriage. That's how it felt. It didn't need to feel like that, but it did. That's truly, honestly how it felt. It felt like we weren't fully married. It felt like we weren't a proper married couple. It really placed a huge burden on us in our relationship, a huge burden both physically and mentally and emotionally even. Just like it was something that was constantly on my mind. Like no matter what I was doing, I was at university at the time, so I was 19, 20 at the time. It was always on my mind. So even though I was married, it felt like I wasn't. And it felt like I was holding on to the secret, and I felt very alone and very lonely to be going through that, because I felt too embarrassed and too ashamed to tell anyone about this. I didn't tell my parents or my siblings or friends. It was just me and my husband who knew about it. So we continued to live like that for over a year, where we didn't have penetrative sex, and if we did try, the same thing happened and it was painful. So we lived like that for over a year. And then it kind of reached breaking point in our marriage because it placed such a huge burden on us. It reached a point where we knew that we couldn't continue to live like that in our marriage. And I started thinking about, if I end up never having penetrative sex with my husband, how will I ever get pregnant? That's what I started to think. Even though I didn't want to get pregnant straight away, I started thinking about the future and thinking about, what if I never get to have penetrative sex? What if I'm the only woman on planet Earth who can't ever have it? And then that must mean that I'll never be able to have kids. That's kind of what I started thinking about. And so it reached breaking point, and we started thinking about, if this continues on, we may end up getting divorced because of this. And I didn't think that getting divorced for this was a good enough reason. I knew that I had to find a way to overcome this. And so that's what I did. I went online and I started doing some research and started searching for solutions to painful sex. And after doing some research, I came across the term vaginismus, and I started reading about what vaginismus is. And it was literally like a light bulb moment for me. When I read about vaginismus, I felt so relieved, because I started understanding that what I'm going through is normal and it's common, and that other women go through it too, and that it's possible to overcome it. And I was really happy to come across the term vaginismus, because I had never heard about it before. And when I read that there's a name for it, like there's a medical term, it's a medical condition, it just made me feel relieved. And I then discovered that it's possible to treat it. So through my research, I found out that vaginismus occurs when a woman's pelvic floor muscles, the muscles that surround the vagina, start to contract in a subconscious or automatic way, meaning the woman's not usually aware that that's what's happening. So when something's trying to penetrate, it might even be something like a tampon or a menstrual cup. When a woman's trying to insert those objects and finds that it's really difficult and painful, she's not aware that it's because the pelvic floor muscles are contracting, causing the vagina to become very narrow. So when a woman's trying to have sex for the first time and her husband's penis is unable to go in, and it feels like there's that blockage or that wall, there is no blockage and there is no wall. It's simply the narrowing of the vagina that makes it seem like there's a wall. And I found out that the contraction of the pelvic floor muscles happens in that automatic subconscious way, usually due to some kind of, emotion such as fear. And that's definitely the case for me. For me, when I was going through this, it was due to that fear of pain. Hearing those stories growing up, it really left me with feelings of deeply ingrained fear and terror. And so that fear and terror produced a stress response in my body, and caused the pelvic floor muscles to start contracting. Luckily, I discovered through my research that even though in that situation, in vaginismus, the pelvic floor muscles are contracting automatically, so a woman is not aware of it and is not in control of it at that point, what a woman can do to become in control of it is to learn how to consciously relax the pelvic floor muscles. How to be aware of getting the pelvic floor muscles to be relaxed is a very important step in learning how to do insertion exercises, whether it be with tampons or dilators, to do insertion exercises in a way that it's pain-free, and so it allows you to practice relaxing the pelvic floor muscles. And that's what I had to do. I went through a process of training my pelvic floor muscles to get them to be relaxed and practicing with a range of dilators. So I have a few more things that I'd like to share with you, but just before I do, I'd love it if you could leave a comment below and let me know if you are struggling with vaginismus or painful sex, if you're struggling or afraid of first-time sex, and I'd love it if you could also let me know, what stories did you hear about sex growing up? So I started looking at the best possible solution to treat it, and came across the fact that a lot of women use things known as dilators or vaginal trainers to practice inserting objects that are similar in shape to a man's penis. I'm going to show you what the dilators look like. So these are the dilators, and they come in gradual sizes. So these are the first 3 in my set. As you can see, the first one is quite narrow. It's roughly, I would say, similar in width to maybe my little finger. So quite narrow and quite short, and they also come with a handle. The handle just helps you to be able to kind of grip onto it better. I always find this bit a little bit tricky to get in place. Hang on, there we go. So you've got a handle added to it, and it's also recommended to use some form of lubricant on the dilator or the vaginal trainer to be able to insert it. So I showed you the first 3, but they kind of gradually increase in size, and there are different types of dilators. The ones I used were these ones, and these ones are kind of plastic and hard, but there are other ones that are kind of made out of silicone, so they're a bit softer. Some of the dilators kind of have a natural curve to mimic the natural curvature of a man's penis. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter which dilators you use, because I mean, some make a difference in terms of comfort, but essentially the process of insertion is what matters. Learning how to relax your pelvic floor muscles, which is what I had to do. I had to find out how to get my pelvic floor muscles to be relaxed and practice with the different sizes of dilators. So these were the first 3. And then I would gradually go through the next 3 sizes, and the largest size is roughly meant to be similar in terms of width and length to a man's erect penis. I was able to gradually work my way through the different sizes of these dilators over a number of weeks. I'd say roughly, it took me roughly 4 weeks, I think, to go from the smallest size to the largest size. And that's a fairly short amount of time. And the reason I think I was able to get through them so quickly is because I was really excited to use them. The reason I was excited to use them is because I started to feel a lot more empowered and in control. When it came to trying to have sex with my husband, I felt disempowered and I felt like I had no control. Whereas with dilators, it felt like I could literally take things into my own hands and practice for myself, inserting these objects, these dilators, to build my confidence and to prove to myself that there is no barrier inside my vagina. And that's what these dilators accomplished for me. When I was able to insert these different dilators, I was so sure that I have nothing wrong with me. I can get these dilators in and there is no pain and there is no barrier. So after practicing with the dilators and practicing to get my pelvic floor muscles to be relaxed and being able to use the larger dilators, it really gave me so much confidence to transition to intercourse with my husband. And so I was able to do that. I was able to have proper first time sex with my husband. And when he finally managed to insert his whole penis into my vagina, it felt like a huge sense of relief that I finally overcame it. It almost felt at that moment too good to be true, because I had lived with it for so long. It kind of felt like I was never going to overcome it. But finally I did. I overcame it, and I felt this huge sense of relief that he was finally able to penetrate me with his penis. And I almost felt like his whole penis wasn't in. I actually remember saying to him, you can go in a little bit more, I can't feel you all the way in. And he said to me, look Amira, it's all the way in. He even took my hand and showed me, like, he was like, I can't push the penis anymore, I'm all the way in. And we were both like over the moon. We were so happy that we've finally overcome this. And I felt so proud of myself that I went through this difficult thing, but I took it into my own hands and made sure that I overcame this. And so I overcame it on my own, but I think that was quite, I'm surprised that I overcame it on my own, if I'm honest with you. I think the reason I had to overcome it on my own is because back then there weren't as many resources available. So as I mentioned, this was like 2009 when I was 19. So 2009, 2010 when I was trying to overcome this. And so that was, you know, over 10 years ago. And there weren't that many resources, so I had to essentially overcome it on my own. And yes, it is possible to overcome it on your own technically, but I know that through the work that I do, a lot of women struggle to overcome it on their own. And there's multiple reasons for that, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually normal. To overcome something like this, just like if you think about if a man is struggling with erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation, he may be able to do things to overcome it on his own, but typically he will need to go and seek out help from specialists and seek out treatment to overcome it properly. So that's, I think, the same thing for vaginismus. So if you're struggling to overcome vaginismus on your own, please do not think of yourself harshly. That's actually very normal. And that's actually why I do the work that I do, why I coach women on how to overcome vaginismus. Literally in the coaching calls that I do, I will be guiding women as to how to actually use the dilators live during the coaching sessions that I do, and guiding them through all the way to intercourse and helping them to emotionally overcome that fear, whether it's a fear of pain, a fear of their body, or a fear of pregnancy, sometimes a fear of infection, or overcoming the thoughts when it comes to negative or toxic thoughts with regards to sex. That's really the work that I focus on. And so I've produced a free online training that I would love for you to register if you'd like to attend. It's called Fearless, Painless First Time Sex. I created this training for two main reasons: to help women overcome vaginismus if they are already going through painful sex and if penetrative sex is painful, but equally to help prevent vaginismus even if you're not married, if perhaps you're about to be married soon or you're putting off marriage because you're afraid of the sex part of things. Join this training because it will help you to literally achieve fearless, painless first time sex. I also provide information about the courses and the programs that I offer. So I have an online course, it's called Confident Marital Sex, and I have a private coaching program. And this all came from the fact that I went through this myself, and I really don't want any other woman to go through this for much longer. I want them to overcome it. I want women to have that sense of freedom and relief, and to let go of that huge weight on their shoulders and let go of that burden that this puts on them, because I know how lonely it is to go through vaginismus. On that note, in terms of feeling lonely and isolated, if you were to join my course, for example, the course comes with both lessons that you follow, step-by-step lessons as to how to overcome vaginismus in the same way that I overcame it. So I share with you everything I did to overcome it, but equally you get access to a private Facebook group. And at the moment of recording this video, I've got over 200 women in that group, and it's such a great community to be part of because there's a mixture of women in that group, women who either have vaginismus and are in the process of overcoming it, women who are preparing for first time sex for when they get married, and women who have already overcome vaginismus because they joined my program and they've overcome it. And so I'd love for you to be part of that community if you're interested. And if you want to find out more, register for my free training. It's about 90 minutes long. It's called Fearless, Painless First Time Sex, and the link to join is in the description box below. And in case you're wondering how successful my programs are, I have a multitude of reviews and testimonials and success stories that you can have a look through. Some of them are audio testimonials, there's a video testimonial as well, and there are some written testimonials that you can have a look through. I've compiled all of that onto one link on one website, and the link for my reviews is again in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching. Please do like this video and leave a comment below. Let me know if you found this video helpful. Please do subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell icon. And I'd love it if you could watch this video next. This video shows you the vaginismus treatment steps that you can follow to help you to overcome painful sex. Thanks so much for watching. Take care and see you in the next video.